Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this November 2019 customer webinar. Today, Susan Bell, Product Manager for the BLOX Now app, and Christine Masters, Director of Product Management, will show off what's new. We also have Joe Hansen, Product Manager, and Gary Stiebel, Inside Sales. I didn't tell him I was going to announce it. So, in the room if you have any questions. I'm Cherry Wolf, Marketing Specialist for Town News. The presentation will take about 30 minutes and a Q&A will follow. At any point, you can type a question into the chat box, but we'll wait to answer them at the end. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be available early next week. Susan, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Today's agenda, we're going to talk about exciting updates to the Now app. That's why Susan's with us. And Christine's going to give us an introduction to the BLOX Media Library and support for the Ads Thattxt and a couple other new things that we've got going on. So with that, we'll let Susan talk about the BLOX Now app.
Okay, thank you, Jerry. So we're really excited to roll out a new version of the BLOX Now app. The new and improved BLOX Now app offers a more personalized user experience, easier management, and more revenue opportunities. So today we're going to review 5 new opportunities with the Now app. We're also going to have a quick discussion on analytics, and we're going to do a quick live demo so that I can show you some of the features in action. So to get started, we want to talk about some revenue opportunities. We have 3 new ad positions in this app. You have a inline ad in your asset feeds, and you have an interstitial ad that you're able to utilize. In this version, we've included a launch ad. This launch ad is what it says. It launches at the beginning of your app, so after your splash screen loads, you have a full screen launch ad that you can deploy if you choose to. It is still your option within the admin to utilize this ad position or not. We try to mirror the same setup as ads, so if you've launched that in your ads, then you'll be familiar with the launch ad setup. It'll just be a new ad unit there. We've also launched 2 sticky ads. This was highly requested by the customer base. We deployed this 2 different ways. These sticky ads, and you can see the ad positions there, are the sizes, the 300 by 50, the 300 by 100, the 320 by 50, and the 320 by 100. So we can make sure that we're utilizing dynamic ad placement and things of that nature. And then you have a tablet size down there as well. So the home index feed, that is going to launch at the bottom of your asset feed. You can choose to deploy it there, or you can choose not to. We decided when we were developing this to also offer a separate control for the article page sticky ad. Sometimes, depending on how you have your article pages set up, you may feel you have enough ads on that page and choose not to deploy the sticky ad. We wanted you to have that option in there. So in the admin tool, you're going to see those 2, as represented on the screen, you're going to see those 2 ad position additions under advertising. So in this version of Now app, really we are allowing a lot more customization and a lot more features so that your app can really turn into something very unique for your property. You know, when we first launched the Now app, it was just feature cards on there. We introduced a headline card under the appearance tab, and we, in this version, have launched new blocks for you to use. Users really like weather data. We get a lot of good feedback on there. It was always our intention to include better weather data for our customers. So in this version, we actually have current weather. You can actually see this on a screenshot, and again, I'm going to demo this weather section for you in just a minute. But the current weather is all of these blocks will have a default of the zip code that your app is set up with. Typically, that is the zip code from where your property is located. Current weather will be the data from your current property. And then we have the 7-day weather, and we have hourly weather. These other 2 blocks I want to talk about for a second. So the weather block, which is represented in that top block there, it says Moline, Illinois, and it has a zip code. That is a zip block. It notifies the user what city that you're in and what what zip code that you're in, and if there is severe weather alerts in your area, they'll actually deploy beneath that right there. The customized weather block, but right beneath that is interaction for your end user to be able to override your default zip code and be able to get weather anywhere in the country that they choose. Not only they override the zip code on the customize your weather block, but they can also go to settings, and there's a zip code override tab in there. That override will update all of these weather blocks that we're discussing today. So this is a really neat feature. I did want to talk about best practices for setup. So if your app is currently live, you know, we have determined best practices to build a topic section called weather, so that you can include all of these weather blocks for your customers as you kind of get used to the blocks. You can move all of these blocks to your home asset feed as you become familiar with it and place that. Again, this is supposed to make your home asset feed a very unique experience. A good example of how to use that would be, you know, if you had severe weather in your area, you could easily move that severe weather block to your home asset feed, so you can notify, you know, your users of weather events in your area. Right now, one little note on this: if you do try to set this up, you are going to get a notification in the admin that is under experimental settings. That's just going to be till the end of next week. But if you do want to set this up, if your 3.0 version is already live, you'll just need to contact your customer service representative, and they'll help you get that set up.
And Susan, if I could interject here for just 1 second, you know, when we very first launched the Now app, we were actually asked by many of especially the first kind of users of the app, that one of the things that they would like to see is more like being able to customize it the same kind of way that they do with the website, where they drag and drop blocks around the page in order to create the app, which is it's a relatively revolutionary thing for an app to have a drag and drop design interface. And you know what Susan's really been working on here for the last year or so is, as we're adding in these new blocks, it's really getting closer and closer. And especially with this version, we have enough kind of different design blocks as well as the weather blocks that you can actually start to create a designed page on your app the same way that you would like the front page. You can have the feature cards, as Susan said, at the top, and then some headline cards, and then portrait cards, a weather card, and you can more just actually design the page like the way people have been asking us to. So, I mean, this is really cool stuff that if you haven't really taken a look at the BLOX Now app before, this is a really great time. This is some really great stuff.
No, feel free to jump in. You may want to do that on the portrait card here. And as Christine said, you know, the movable block is definitely our future goal for probably most things in the app. You know, right now we still have feature cards that are in that home asset feed. If you go to appearance, you're able to choose a different treatment for that content. One is a headline card, and this release we actually added 2 different treatments. One is automatic, so the vertical treatment. This really solves the problem of cropping in the app. If you have like a politician picture or any kind of photo really that was really a vertical picture, the block system now is going to detect that vertical picture, and it's going to have an automatic vertical card that it puts it on. So you don't have to do any of this. This will be one of the features that's automatically deployed in your app. So you can see from the example over to your right that it will automatically put that on there, and then pull the headline and all the metadata over there on the right-hand side of that card. So this is going to make the app look a lot better, and it also will give you some different card styles in your asset feed. The second thing that card style that we deployed in here is a portrait card. This will be under the appearance too, where you can select either a feature, a headline card, or a portrait card. So the idea behind this, we really started looking at what we wanted to do for a better presentation for things like obituaries, not just that, which is why we did a portrait card. So really kind of any group of photos you have or any kind of series that you have. You can see a quick example of that over there, where you have vertical stacks of content in there. And you can, put 3 and you can do 2. There's different rules of how those display on there. But again, another unique design that kind of gives your home asset feed some interest, not only for your users, but it allows you to put more content on the page too. So that's a really good way to put, instead of stacking things on top of each other, where you have that portrait display and you can get a lot of content on your app. Christine, I don't know if you have anything else you want to add about the portrait card or different examples of that, but feel free to jump in on that one.
Yeah, no, I think you hit the main points. That the feature card, the vertical treatment is an automatic thing that happens with the feature card. So now when you have those, mug shots, that you don't get kind of the nose and forehead kind of issues, that this will automatically fix that problem. And then like Susan said, the portrait card is just a new, entirely different card, which will, regardless of the ratio or the proportion of the photo itself, it will make it a portrait card. So, but it's a really nice way to show columnist mugs or man on the street interviews or anything like that, that you have a good portrait card for, that you can create like a little row of those or multiple rows of those. You can set the background color as well. So there's some additional kind of design elements that you can add there. So it's some really, really cool stuff.
So in the last opportunity that we want to talk about today is search inside of the app. It's not that common for apps to have search. It is for your website and it is for your mobile sites on your devices. But we are excited to launch search in this app. It works by, searching your content on your website through keywords. And it gives you all those same great search options that you're used to through the CMS. So you do have advanced search selections as well. And it will, this is automatically deployed in your app. There's no setup required for you. So when you deploy your menu, you'll see the search option there. Other than that, that one's pretty self-explanatory, but very cool. So the promo and login screens. Right now, not a lot of people are utilizing paywall in the app, but a few people are. But your content can live under a paywall in the article section. And if it did, then if the user was not logged in because there had not been an opportunity for them to log in, then they would be presented with a login screen if they hit content. So we designed this login feature for several different reasons. One, to improve that experience for a user, but also completely customizable for you, the business owner, and how you want to interact with your customers. So with a series of options for you at the beginning of the app. One is you can deploy just your app normally. You do not have to use any of these features, and so your users would never see a login screen, and everything would remain the same for them. We built a promo launch screen, and this page is a really good customizable way for you to have talking points. There's customizable icons on this page. And that first introduction to your customers where you're able to get messages across to them. And you can see on the bottom of that, there's a sign up and a login there. Those buttons take you to the login screen. The promo page is optional. You do not have to launch that. You can simply just say, I want to launch the login screen. And then your users can just log in from there as well. What this does is when your users log in, it'll let them log in if they have and detect whether they have an account with BLOX. If they do have an account with BLOX, it tells the app what kind of level, whether they have subscriptions, whether they don't have subscriptions, and if they do, then they're logged in for their full app experience. So they won't hit another login screen when they're in the article section. If they don't have a subscription with BLOX, then they'll still be presented with that when they hit content that's behind the paywall. So that's this is a huge feature in this app, and it's got a lot of building blocks for lots of things to come. And y'all may have some questions about that at the end. Christine, was there anything else you wanted to add about that?
Just two quick things. One is that by default, it will be off. So you're not going to see this when you update to the new version. It's something that you have to turn on if that's your choice. And I think you kind of mentioned this, but I just think it's a really cool thing that all of the text on this page, I think except for the very bottom one, but all of this can be customized. So right now, this example shows different features that are available in this app and then some kind of generic icons. But if you had different types of content that was, covering a specific, a storm or a court case or a specific type of content that you have on your site that's unique to your site, this is a really great place where you can talk about that type of content and things that are unique to your specific site. So it's a great opportunity to put those in front of the users as they log into your app.
So with this feature, or with this version update, there are some impacts to our analytics. And we have a lot of documentation on our help desk that you can go read in detail, but Google made some changes that we had to react to in this version. So basically this impacted anybody who is not on a Google Analytics 360 account. So if you're using the business account and not the 360 account, your analytics and how they were set up in your GA account were impacted. So, they were supposed to shut those analytics off. They're going to leave the historic analytics in there for the foreseeable. We'll have a date on when those are going to be shut off. But customer service is working to contact and anybody that did have a live app and to make these changes. It's just a little bit of a different setup in the account so that you can still get those analytics. Basically, you're using a Firebase for your analytics instead of just the legacy Google Analytics, which is a change that Google wanted us to make. So again, I think the point to stress here is only if you don't have a Google 360 account. And if you haven't been contacted by your customer representative or you have any questions on that setup, then just reach out to us and we'll help you get all that fixed.
Awesome. Are you ready to show this off?
Yeah, fingers crossed. And we're going to do a live demo for you guys really quickly because I know I'm running out of time. So I've already launched, this is just a demo app here, and I've already launched the screen. And you can see that the first thing, I actually have the promo, I have everything deployed in this app. So the first thing that the customers would see is a promo page with those talking points that we were just reviewing. I'm actually, for the purpose of this, if I hit login, I would get that login screen where I'd be able to put my username and password in. But for this, I'm just going to hit now, no thanks. And I'm actually not going to deploy push notifications for this. And then it takes you back into the home asset feed. Whether you log in or don't log in, you're going to get to your home asset feed just the same. So I just kind of wanted to go over a couple of the cards and the blocks and the search, the things that we just talked about. So when you deploy your menu here, you can see that your search options are there. And you can put in whatever search terms that you want. And then when you ask it to return those results, you'll be directed to a screen. And then you can also use advanced search options if you're not finding what you're looking for. So again, this is automatically deployed app once your app is updated to 3.0, or if you're a new customer, then you'll just get this with your new app. So I am going to go to our weather block section. Again, we have this set up under a topic in the menu here. And I just have all of the blocks deployed right now for this purpose. So the current weather, again, this is default. Moline, Illinois was our default zip code. And the current weather block, we have an hourly block that scrolls, a 7-day weather block that gives you that 7-day information. Up here, if we had severe weather alerts, then it would deploy underneath here. So I'm actually going to switch just to I'm actually going to go to customize my weather. I'm actually going to put 32233. That's where I live in Atlantic Beach, Florida.
Oh, we do not feel sorry.
So even though I don't live in a cold part of the country, if it gets above 40 degrees or below 40 degrees, everybody panics. So you can see that we have all of these severe weather alerts right now that are being deployed. Your users can interact with this. They can expand for more information. and then they can minimize that when they're through with that. But you can customize that zip code. This is going to be your zip code override for your users. And not only can they override the zip code here, but they can also go to the settings tab, and then that same opportunity is there for them as well. So they'll be able to get weather in a couple of different places. But we're trying to provide as many customized experiences in line as we can, and you'll see more and more of that come out.
And again, that's
in the future.
That's a block. So in theory, you could actually put that customized weather alert block on your front page to get those on the fly automatic weather alerts on your front page if you wanted to.
Yeah, and it would make that home asset feed really, really nice. And again, if you're having severe weather in your area, this would be a really nice feature just to slide that block over to that home feed, so that you're giving your users useful data. So I'm going to go back to just the home feed here, actually the news feed here. I just wanted to show you live what the vertical card looks like. So this was a vertical photo that the system automatically detected, and it put it on a vertical treatment here, and it'll pull the rest of that data over to the right-hand side for you. And again, you can put this card style in your home asset feed. I just have this under a separate topic section just to show you. But this is a live example of a portrait card. And again, you can put this in your home asset feed. So you can start to see how you can really build this asset feed to look very different, where your app is unique and different than anybody else's. And once you click on these, they all work just the same. And I think those are the things that I wanted to demo. I don't think I forgot anything. Those are the things that we'd be happy to take questions for this at the end. But Sherry, I think you can go ahead and take it back.
All right.
And again, on some of those pages, the colors are also customizable, so you can change the background color and you can change the text color. So if you wanted, a black background with white text or whatever, that's definitely possible. And then each of those blocks can be customized on the front page or on individual topic pages, and each so again, like Susan was showing, you could build a prom section that shows prom portraits in the portrait card, and just like you can on your website, create special sections and remove them the next week or something. There's a lot of flexibility there that you now have. So it's super awesome.
It's so exciting.
And we have more in store as well. We are working on additional card types and additional customization functionality that we hope to have out this year, the beginning of next year. So we're really excited about adding in this customization functionality.
All right. Do you want to go to the next section?
Yeah.
That's you.
Any last words, Susan?
She'll talk more in the questions.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll let her talk again.
Alrighty, so now we're going to talk about the new BLOX CMS release that was released a couple weeks ago, but we'll go over a couple of the highlights for that. The first thing is we just launched a new application called the BLOX Media Library. If you go up to the left panel in the BLOX CMS where you're choosing all the different applications that you can interact with, you can choose the media library is now available. But because it's new and it's kind of a different idea that we wanted to really kind of talk a little bit about what it's meant to do and the purpose behind it. It's something that we're putting out there now. There is some specific functionality that is available now, but we're really building on it over the future. So I just wanted to go over a little bit of that. So first off, the purpose behind the media library is a management system for static images and other like media files, so PDFs and things like that. What you can do with this is that if there's any kind of icons or photos or things like that that are not necessarily news items or day-to-day news items, this is a great place to store those items. We've been asked a lot over the years for the ability to not have something searchable on the front end. So like, let's say you wanted to add a logo to the front page for the Cranberry Festival or something like that. A lot of people right now will actually create an asset for the Cranberry Festival and then put that in a block and then feature that on the front page. But if someone searches for, cranberries on your site, that image ends up showing in the search results, and it might be a kind of an awkward experience or a confusing experience for the end user. So over time, people have asked us to, have some kind of a toggle that they could hide things from that search. This is essentially our solution to that if you have those non-news or non-day-to-day content type images, this is really where you should be storing those things. You can still upload them to front-end blocks. You can still use image proxy technology on them. So this means that they automatically size based on the device size or the region that they're contained within. So they smart size so that they're highly efficient in terms of download time on the page. But they aren't available in front-end searches. So obviously this is not the place to upload your graduation photos that you do want to be searchable, but this is the place where there's site logos, or if there's like a healthcare logo that you have on the top of a page or anything like that, this is a great place where you can store those things. Another thing that is a good use case for the media library is that it doesn't affect asset relationships. So in the past, we've had some people that might have a logo for the police blotter, and they've got hundreds, thousands even of police blotter stories that are referencing that particular file. And then at some point, the asset system, might be overwhelmed with the number of relationships that it's trying to maintain between all these different items. This is a more appropriate use case for that sort of thing, where if you want to add a block to those pages and then have your police tape logo uploaded to that block, then you store it here instead of storing it as an asset. The other thing that's available, and I think I'll go into this a little bit in the future, is there's also the availability of referencing that specific item on external sites. We actually in the past have recommended against using like a BLOX image URL on our CDN to actually reference an image from another site, because it does actually break over time. We change our file system, the CDN will expire. So this is a really good example where there's a specific URL that you can use on external sites to reference these images. And it's a much more efficient process. So here's an example of going into the block editor. And this is what a block with an image upload property looks like. And then in this case, normally you're uploading a file from your desktop or choosing from Dropbox. Now we have the ability to choose from the media library. You're able to select that and then find the image in the media library that you want to use in this block, and then you can use it there. This would be a really great place for example, a site logo, so that you can upload your site logo here, and then you're using that exact same file in various places throughout the site. We also have a batch upload. It's one of those kind of mini batch uploads that you can do from your desktop in order to populate the media library. As you upload items to the media library, there's this column here called access name. And I'll talk about access name a little bit more in the future, but the point about the access name is that it's essentially a nickname for this specific file. It's actually the way that you would reference that file from external sites, or if you're searching for it, etc. So in this case, it's using the file name as the starting point for the access name, but we would recommend that you name this with something specific, like site logo or Cranberry Festival promo or something like that. And then that way you can find it more easily in the future. And then that's kind of its unique name and how you reference that specific image file in the future. So as you upload items, this is your chance. You can click on that column, rename it, and then save this. And then that allows you to rename those files as you're uploading them. One of the ways that you can kind of categorize your items, these don't have like folders or section tags associated to them, but they do have keywords. So for what we would recommend is that you're using the keywords in order to kind of categorize them. And again, you really shouldn't be doing news photos, but you should have things like section topic headers, site logos, maybe columnist profile pictures. Those types of things are great to be added to here. And then you can use keywords to file them away or help differentiate them. Obviously, you can have multiple keywords on a per image basis. In this particular case, it is possible. So just talking about photo sales in general, it is now possible to turn on a new feature that makes the status of whether or not something is available for sale. That is now available in the main asset editor. This is something that a lot of people have asked us about, that when they're implementing photo sales on their site, when they're allowing the public to essentially buy a photo, they would like to start off with all of the photos disabled so that photo sales are not allowed on those photos. And then they want to be able to click on the photos that they want to put up for sale, essentially, so that they can be sure that they're all, only the ones that they want to put for sale are allowed to be for sale. So this way you can actually see the photo sales status in your main BLOX access or your main asset editor. And then you can click on the ones that you want to change. You can do a batch edit to change them all over to disabled or enabled. And then there's also now a search panel where you can search by things that have enabled or disabled. So it's a nice new thing for those of you who are doing photo sales. There's a lot of people who are being very successful these days in using photo sales. So this really helps you kind of manage that, see on a day-to-day basis or even over time what things you've been putting up for sale so that you can review them. And then now with batch editing, you're able to take those and switch them all over to enabled or disabled. So it's a really nice feature. We also wanted to talk a little bit about the Tribute store that we now have available within our obits pages. Essentially what this is, it's a new vendor that we partnered with. They are actually, they run the kind of the CMS software for funeral homes. They get the actual funeral home information or the obit information as part of the funeral home process. And the really interesting thing that this does is it actually matches your obit data in your newsroom with the obit data from the funeral home. And if there's a match, it will display service information such as the funeral or the visitation times as a kind of event on your published obit page. So if there's an obit from someone, and then you might have maybe 5 lines description about, that obit that's published on your site, it'll actually match that to the funeral home and add additional information to that obit that's published on your site with additional events associated to that, services especially associated to that specific person. And what this does is it allows the end users who are viewing that obituary that they can then choose to send flowers or other gifts that are able to go to that service, and it actually can deliver them to the funeral home by the time that the visitation or the funeral is occurring. So it's a very a nice and tasteful way that they can actually contribute something and say that they're thinking of that person. This is a revenue share situation that we have with your site. So there's a revenue share of the proceeds of the any of the purchases that are made will go to you. So this is a nice way to add additional services to those obit pages, as well as have some revenue coming in from that. So it's a nice new feature. Talk to your sales rep if you're interested in hearing more about this. So another new feature that is now available in the BLOX CMS that came out a couple weeks ago is support for Ads Thattxt. So just a quick background of what Ads Thattxt and Ads Thattxt is. Ads Thattxt is just a way that you as a media site essentially gives permission for different types of networks to sell on your site. And what happens is a lot of service providers won't allow ads to be shown on a site unless that site has an ads.txt file that has a specific, and you can kind of see over here the codes that they would provide that essentially tell this vendor that this is the correct site that this should be showing the ad on. So it's basically giving permission or matching up that this is the correct site and these are the ads or networks that are showing up on this site. App ads is a new technology that's available to essentially provide the same type of service for native apps like the Now app, but it's kind of a different, it's just a different file name essentially. So what happens is these crawlers that are checking for this type of information go to your site and they ask for the ads.txt file, and then we hand them the ads.txt file. In this case, for native apps, they're asking for app ads.txt from your site. And we're essentially, as part of this change, going to be giving them the same info as the ads.txt file. So if you're familiar with the interface in BLOX that is currently available, where you go in and add ads.txt information for your site, now you will additionally add app information as well. So if you are working with a network, an ad network provider for your native app, like BLOX Now, they will be providing you, or you can ask them for specific information and codes for your native app, and then you would add that to the same file here. Then, regardless of the type of crawler, if they're asking for app ads or ads.txt, either one will hand them the same file, and they'll parse it and they'll see that the information for whichever one they're looking for will be there, and it works great. So it's a really an easy way to manage that information. And it's something that you already have and are familiar with, but you can just add the additional app information there. The one thing I wanted to point out very quickly is that the way that the crawlers figure out which app in the App Store is associated to which file online is they look at the website name in the App Store, in the App Store metadata. There's a website that's associated to that particular app. It will look for that particular app and look for that URL, and then it will look for app ads.txt under that URL. So if you're trying to deploy app ads.txt and you do not have your correct site URL in the App Store, maybe it's a vendor URL or maybe it's some other kind of umbrella URL, you might want to look into changing that so that the crawlers can find your correct file. So a couple other really quick things to talk about. We did add more alert type flags to the table asset. There's a couple different instances where people were using a table asset to store maybe weather data or school closings information and wanted to be able to use like top story or urgent or breaking news flags on the table asset for that purpose. So we have added those to the table asset. I also wanted to give you a quick heads up that in order to make sure that the system was performing optimally, we want to only have a maximum of 250 child assets on a single parent asset. This sounds like a lot. I don't think I've ever seen one with 250 children before, but we're basically at the point of saving either a collection or article or any type of asset. At the point of saving it, it will say, hey, you have more than 250, please, remove some. And then it just won't let you save until you've reduced the number to below 250. For former assets, if you have assets in the system that have 250 children or more already attached to them, they are probably really slow to load and don't necessarily work that well anyway, but they will stay out there. They are not affected unless you open them and save them. So then in that case, it will ask you to remove some. So that's a new limitation that's put in place just to improve system performance. We also changed the PDF optimization. It used to be that we would optimize files automatically or optimize PDFs automatically whenever somebody uploaded them, but the optimization process on PDFs actually caused a lot of problems. So we now have a button in the system that says, don't optimize PDFs anymore. Well, there was a lot of back and forth about whether or not we needed that. So we've actually just removed that functionality now. If you want to optimize them, great, you can optimize them. If you don't want to optimize them, great, don't optimize them. It's up to you. And the very last thing is that we do have some new editorial jobs that are available that's something that we mostly handle on our side. So unless you're a very particular type of person that has history working with that, that's probably something that you don't need to worry too much about, but just to let you know that it's there. And I think that's it. So, any questions?
Yes.
How long did it take? Is it too long? That's
No,
not
you're
fine.
Yes, there's a lot of questions. Susan, I want to make sure you can hear these too.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, good. Can the severe weather alerts in the app be configured to send as push notifications?
Not yet. That'll be that's something we're working on for down the road.
But there are push notifications in the app.
That is correct. Yeah. So the push notifications are the same in this version and deployed through the notifier. So you would have to send out the weather alerts through the notifier. It would have to be a manual message that you would send.
Can you change the text on the photo in a feature block? It used to be barely legible and makes scanning headlines difficult, so readers were complaining. Has that been updated or changed in any way?
We updated the text size in the last version, so the version that's currently live. We increased the text size so that it was more legible. But there is not any update to the text size in this version.
But that's good to know. We can look at that for the future if we need to. It's just hard to. The problem that we experienced last time is just we want to make sure that you can still see the photo.
Right.
So we're struggling with how big you can make it without kind of covering up the whole photo. But that's something that we should look at if there's still an issue with that.
And you can use headline blocks that don't include photos, right?
Yep. There's headline blocks, and there's also new type of blocks that we're looking at for the future that have like a bigger photo presence. So that might be an option there as well.
What about having the headline flush left and portraits on the right? Because right now the picture comes first. So is it option to do it? The headline comes first?
I don't think that we added that in this version, but that is something that we've talked about. Is being able to choose the side of the vertical image. I believe that's what it's asking.
Yes.
So yeah, so that's something that we can look at in the future. We talked about that, but tried to keep it a little simple for this version.
Okay. How does metering work on the app?
Do you want to talk about that, Susan, or do you want me to?
Is it
You're more than welcome.
So, I mean, essentially, again, the way that kind of subscription works within the Now app is that when you hit the article page, we call that a WebKit page, or the app industry calls that a WebKit page, which means that the app itself is kind of a window that is showing the mobile version of your website, essentially. It's kind of a minimized version of your website. So each time a user hits one of those pages, it's metering them just as they would in the mobile web on that device. It is cookieing their meter counts to that specific device. So if they have, 5 meter counts on desktop, and they have 10 before they hit a paywall. On the mobile device, there's 5, and then there's another 5 before they hit that 10 paywall. They don't add together across device, but just like you would with multiple computers, that kind of thing, it's cookied on that specific device. But it will perform the same thing as it does on the web, where they'll look at 5 different articles, and then if they need to get to 10 before they hit a paywall, the 9th article they'll be seeing any kind of you'll be seeing the pages as you look through, and then you hit the paywall just as you would on the web. Then they can either choose to sign in, subscribe, etc. The main issue on the app, obviously, is that we don't allow a subscription process to happen on iOS devices. So when you hit the paywall on the iOS side, it will say something about if you're logged in and you don't have that service, it'll ask you to go to the website to purchase the service. And that is because of Apple's restrictions on paywall. And that's something that going forward, we're looking to kind of add additional capabilities there. So if people do want to use the Apple subscription program and do the rev share to Apple for that, they'll have that available.
Can you set a separate meter for the app?
You can't right now, but that's something that we're looking at going forward.
Can we control the default settings for search? For example, can we remove the images? Can you set the default search to not include images?
Not right now, but that's a good question. We do have some kind of default search logic in there in terms of what it's returning, but that's something that we could look at. I will also say that in regards to the last question about having a different meter wall on the app versus on the web, you can turn off the subscription functionality on the web. I'm sorry, on the app while still having it on the web. So you can have nothing and then metering on the web, but you just can't choose to have 5 and 10 or something like that.
Is there support for a light ad experience for subscribers who are logged in?
Do you want to talk about
That
this?
also is, yeah. So the login screen that we have right now is the building blocks for the ad light model that will be released in the next version of the app.
We forgot to demo our new ad positions, Susan. I think we didn't point those out because in the demo app, they're just random pictures. So if you saw the beautiful sunrise and the lions, and like there were tigers and bears, we had them in there. Do you want to show that off?
Sure, we can show off, if you want to hand it back to me real fast. Okay, everybody should be able to see my screen.
Yep.
So I'm actually just going to go back. Back here for just a second. And there is our pretty little fish down at the bottom. This would be a sticky ad on the home asset feed. If you go into a article page.
And if I can say one quick thing about the sticky ad, if you noticed, she had to kind of scroll down and then scroll back up before it triggered. That's on purpose. There's been some studies that show that that sort of delay, number one, is less annoying to users, and number two is actually more eye grabbing. So that's something that is done on purpose, that it has kind of a slight delay there.
Yeah, and these all have auto closes on there so that you can close out of those ads. What I can't demo right now is the launch ads because I'd have to reload this APK in the emulator, but the launch ad would come before your promo page. You would be the full train ad there.
Awesome. And again, none of that happens, of course, by default. So if you're interested in using some or all of those new functions, then feel free to either look at the documentation on the help site or feel free to call our customer support staff and they can help you set those up and see the different options that are available.
With regards to login, is there a way to set up app-only access?
I mean, if you didn't have an app, if you didn't have any kind of login on your website at all, and you turned on the functionality on the app, I think that would essentially be the same as app-only access. So, I mean, I think if you want to try to submit us a ticket, we can talk through that and maybe do a test to see what you're specifically trying to do. But, based on what you're trying to do, that might be possible.
Can we customize the push alert audio, such as create a custom alert tone?
Susan, I think that's something we talked about for the future. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the customized alert tones are something that are on a discussion list for future releases. We've had a couple of requests about that, so we're still talking about getting that functionality into the next version.
Okay. Are there any real-time analytics available for the Now app since Firebase doesn't do real-time, or does it?
So Google actually owns Firebase. So they have improved their analytics system as they are forcing everybody to use this. So what they've done is you do get some real-time analytics in there, but what they've done is they've created a Google Analytics dashboard for Firebase. That was not an option before October. So now you can go back in there. So yes, you can get real-time analytics like you could in GA with this new display. And another thing to point out too is this new Google Analytics reporting that pulls in your Firebase analytics and then allows you some of those Google features that you're used to, such as real-time analytics, is still under beta. So, just know kind of as we go through this process together that we can expect some changes on how they're doing that. But the long answer to that question was yes.
And that's new as of like just a couple months ago, right, Susan?
Yes.
Yeah. So if this is something that you might not have heard about before, that's because it's actually very new.
Oh, we have lots of questions. This is great. For the media library, will we be able to create folders to help organize materials?
So we don't have folders per se, but we do have keywords. So my recommendation would be to be very strategic as to how you're using the keywords. So don't put like man, girl, ball, house, just to describe every single item in the picture, for example, but instead say, site logo, health logos, etc., and then you'd be able to use the keywords in that way as folders. You can use it however you want. You can put sky if you want to. I shouldn't say that, but yeah, my recommendation would be to use them as that's your way of categorizing things. Is you have kind of free-form keywords there to create whatever kind of system you want.
Also for the media library, can we access these images from within the assets section? The idea is to use the media library to house generic images that we may need for articles.
That is our next step. So right now, the only way that you can use the media items are on URL property image uploads and on block property image uploads. So that's your site logo or maybe the background of your site, other things like that. You can also use them externally. Like I said, there's an access name that is provided that you can use as essentially the nickname that creates a file name that you can use on any other sites. That's really an alias that comes back to us. So if we do change our file system in the future, that nickname will always resolve to the correct file name regardless of where it's stored on our system. I mean, that's something that we're looking at doing in the future, is adding it specifically as a teaser image or as even just a masthead image or something like that on the asset pages themselves, but that's not available now. You could put a block. So for example, I was talking about the police blotter section. You could put a block at the top of the article pages on the police blotter section and then upload a media library file to that block. So in that way, you'd be able to put a specialized kind of logo on those article pages. But we do want to add additional functionality there as well.
If I use an image from the media library to create an image asset, am I essentially creating a copy of that image, or is it just being referenced? Will the new asset then be searchable on my website?
There isn't really a way other than downloading the image and then uploading it again to use it as an image asset. So these aren't image assets. So if you did download it and re-upload it again, then yeah, it would be a duplicate and it would be searchable because you're creating a new asset in that case. In the future, where we add the capability of adding a media library item as like a teaser image on a page, no, that won't be searchable and that won't be an asset. It'll just be a property that has been added to that specific article. I hope that makes sense. But that is something that we're working on as our next step.
Can you use the media library to populate teaser images, and when will this feature be available on TCMS?
It is not available yet on teaser images, but that is something that we're hoping to add probably at the beginning of next year. And TCMS, it will, there's a standard couple of months, 3 to 5 months. I don't know, do you want to talk about that? 3 to 5 months that it would take to add there.
Yeah, it's also not going to be very usable on TCMS in the first draft because it's only meant right now to be used in blocks, and so it'll be a few versions before we have the functionality that we want to be able to add it into the asset editor before it's usable on total CMS.
Yeah, but that is something to mention again, that our purpose behind this is to use it for like the teaser images, so that if you have a police blotter item and you want to use the preview image of that article, that is our intent, to make the media library available for those circumstances. It's just not available in the first version. Similarly, we do also have the plan of adding on a section by section basis, actually in the URL map, having an overall default image that is available for those sections. So you don't have to manually add them to each article in that section. Just if there's no photo available for that particular article, it will default to the section image. That's another plan that we have for the media libraries to use it in that case as well. So and then obviously both of those, we're hoping to roll those things out next year.
Great. For the 250 plus child assets change, there's some businesses with that happening on obits and they don't load. Is there any way to remove the association of all the assets older than a certain time period and have that automatically happen?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. I would submit a ticket to our support team and then we can look at that. I don't think that there's a way. I'm not sure. I'll just say I'm not sure. There's probably a way programmatically we can do it. So let us know what the specific problem is and then we can look at that.
Okay. Back to some questions about the app. Can the app have our logo? Yes, the app is built for you with all of your branding and all of your customizations. We showed off a town news app, but
right,
it's not. It's yours, right?
Yeah, there's a bunch of customizations that can happen. Obviously, it has your site logo. You can choose your colors. You can choose your descriptions. You can choose your launch screen. So a lot of times people will have a nice launch screen and pictures of buildings or gradation or whatever you want on your launch screen. All of that can be unique to your specific site for sure. Nowhere does it say town news, hopefully, if it's done right.
Is there an extra charge to use this version of the mobile app, or is this a system upgrade?
This would be a system upgrade. There's no additional charges for this. This is automatically rolled out to all customers who are currently live on the app and will be offered to new customers signing up.
It's good enough that it could be something you pay for, but it's free.
When will labels or headers be added for blocks and sections within the app?
So that is actually a great question and just something we didn't demo. So we are actually pulling in the flags from the editorial sections into the app now. So you'll see that deployment. That's an automatic deployment that will happen in your app. So if you have a sponsored content, breaking content, obituaries, it will pull all those labels into the card. So if you don't have a flag associated with your content, then that area will be blank. And if you do, it'll deploy the appropriate flag. There's a lot more things in this release than we had time to go through today. So again, make sure you read those releases that we put out and then go back to our site to make sure that you know the full scope of the release.
Do you know the number, Susan? Was it like 40 or 50 items?
It's quite a bit.
Yeah. It's a lot. It's a really big release.
It's a couple highlighter features, but I mean, we had some things like we have live stream capabilities in this app. We didn't go over that today, so that doesn't impact the majority of our customers. But if you're, definitely go back and look at the alert banner section where you can deploy an alert banner or you can deploy your live streaming. So that's another feature that we didn't have time to go over today, but you can go and read the details of it.
Does the app have landscape mode?
So the app has landscape mode for particular things. So for videos that are in, like for child assets, videos that are in articles, those will go into landscape mode as long as your device has rotation turned on. But the asset feed itself does not turn. So it works the same as your social media apps. So like Instagram and Facebook, the landscape modes work exactly the same. So if you'll notice on a Facebook on a mobile device, it doesn't allow you to turn that feed either. So, but the videos will go to landscape mode and as well as some of the portrait assets.
And does e-editions, doesn't that turn?
Yeah, the e-edition does turn, but that's because the e-edition is really not in the app.
Is a web page.
Yeah, we lifted a rule so that when you put the e-edition in the app as a link, you're actually hitting a browser and you're not hitting that WebKit view, that window,
Right.
but that Christine was telling earlier. So you're actually hitting a browser. So full functionality in the e-edition.
And the main issue, obviously, is that when you do turn it to the side, there's not a lot of room.
What about on iPads and tablets?
Do you want to talk about that, Susan?
The iPads and tablets, we actually are going to release the iPad view in the next version, designing that. It'll be a whole new design for that. We can't rotate what we have released for the iPad right now because it's basically the mobile version on an iPad. We just gave it an iPad view, and if we allowed it to turn landscape lines, it would look really bad. So we have that locked down for now, but that is very high up on our priority list to get resolved for 4.0.
Any idea when people can expect that? They're saying that that's the number one complaint from their users.
Well, right now we are working on a release for the beginning of the year.
Great.
I can't give any more specific time, but yeah, it'll be first of the year.
When you were talking about making special sections of photos, such as prom photos, do they have to upload them all to the website as an album and then repost them to the mobile app? Or does the collection get pulled in?
No, I mean, the way that the Now app works is it's essentially just a view of your website. So what you would do is let's say you create a new homecoming section on your website. You would also go into the app and you'd create a new section within the app as well. And then the way that new sections work in the app is it's just a block that you set up on that section page inside of the app area. The app is just like a section on your app, a section on your website that has pages that are set up to provide information to the app itself. So if you look on your website, there's going to be a section somewhere called Now app or something close to that. And then within that is a section for each of the menu items that you have within the app. And so you can go in and change the blocks on those pages, just like you can on your website, or you can change the query rules behind the block. You can pin content to the block, and then that information is what's used to populate the app itself. So you go into the app, you go into the Now app version of your block editor, you create Homecoming 2019, and then you put a block on that page that is configured to only show photos from the, Homecoming keyword tag or the Homecoming 2019 section tag, however you have it set up. And then you put it in portrait mode and you'd have this awesome, web populated. You don't have to update it multiple times. And then after maybe a month, if you want to get rid of it, you just delete that section. The content is still in your website. It's still searchable through the app, but that section is no longer available on the app. Maybe we could do a blog post about how to do that.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean it's a really cool function that the app provides to have that kind of customization opportunities and just integration with the website itself.
What is the approach to handle vertical photos in the future that are not mugshots?
So, I mean, I can answer this one, Susan. The way that this feature works right now is that it looks at the aspect ratio of the photos, of the preview photo for that image. So, for that story. So if you have a feature card and there's any photo, not just mugshot photos, but also basketball images or just, two people walking, and and I don't know the exact calculation, but it's more than a one-to-one relationship. So it's like, if you're greater than whatever this ratio is, then it will then trigger the vertical mode. So if it's 1 pixel taller than it is wide, it won't trigger it because that's essentially, we're considering that to still be a square till a certain point. But at a certain point, its ratio hits it that we determine that it's a vertical photo, and then we trigger the vertical mode. So it's not looking for specifically mugshot images or mugshot presentation mode, but it's looking for things that are the shape of a vertical image. Makes sense?
Okay. Would it be possible to add a feature where a Facebook button could be added similar to the Twitter button, so Facebook posts could be added to assets, like Twitter cards are?
So Facebook posts could be
Embedded, yeah.
Inline.
Post.
So we could look at that again. We looked at that a couple of years ago, and the Facebook API did not did not really allow for that. There was some hacks that other places are kind of doing in order to kind of scrape the pages and things like that, but they didn't offer a proper API for that. We can look again and see if that's something that they've changed in recent years.
Okay.
So that wasn't available previously.
All right. I think that's all the questions we have for now. Thank you, everyone, so much. If you have a specific question, feel free to reach out to customer service and we can answer you directly as well. There are many ways to stay connected with us. You can find a lot of this documentation on our help.bloxcms.com site. We have our release notes there if you're curious what all is included in the latest versions. You can call support at 800-293-9576 or visit support.townnews.com. Our partner community, community.townnews.com, is a great place to share ideas for what you're doing, ask questions. There's a lot of brainstorming going on there. Great place to get information. You can check our status at townnews.status.io. You can follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, or you can sign up for one of our many newsletters. If you signed up for today's webinar, you will be added to our webinar announcements email newsletter list. You'll get a copy of the recording and any future announcements. Christine, Susan, thank you so much. There's a lot of information and really excited about the upcoming changes.
It's really good stuff.
Susan, did you have any last words?
No, I think I'm good. This is great feedback. So just continuing these conversations just help to continue to improve the product. So thank you for your feedback.
Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next time.